This video is to show how to navigate the Savvas, Realize, Envisions math website. It's been updated for this school year, so let's take a look. You can click on Teacher Bookmarks or just type in the address directly. It's savvasrealize.com. Go to Sign In. Everyone's password should start out as math@123 unless it's been changed. And your screen will look something like this. I have access to different grades on the side, but most likely you just are looking at one grade. Let's say I'm a 4th grade or 5th grade teacher. Okay, let's pretend we're a 5th grade teacher today. Click on grade 5. At the top it should say Envisions Mathematics 2020 Common Core grade 5, all that. Now, one of the ways that we see a change this year, which I think is more helpful, is on the left side you have a huge table of contents. It might not look too helpful, but for those that are used to this program, I think it's easier to find what you need. We can click on these little apps here, I would call them, or categories to find. I don't find that very helpful. I find the left side the most helpful. So if I'm a 5th grade teacher and I'm starting the year, I'm a few days into school, I can ignore a lot of the stuff at the top. Look at that on your own time. But if I'm really concerned about what do I want to do in class today? Okay, I've got my topics here all the way down. When I click on each topic, it will change to show me just topic 1 now. Again, at the top, Savvas always gives us some stuff at the top we don't really need. But then I'm going to go down to the meat of the lessons, where I see 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4. Let's say I'm at the point of the year where I'm on lesson 1-5, so I'm going to click on that one, and all the lessons will look very similar how they're set up. Again, I've got some stuff at the top I don't need, but then I can look down here and I have everything I need for lesson 1-5 now has populated over here. So this is our daily assignments. And I can do everything in order through this, but there's a lot of stuff here. So let's pick and choose what we need most of all. All right, now the real meat of the lesson is those practice pages. So let's say I'm struggling for time and I just want to get the lesson in. I don't have time for all the extra stuff. I'm going to keep scrolling down. As you can see, the page has a lot more stuff on here than it did last year. Not more things, but more pictures. So the list is a little bit longer than what you might be used to. But if we keep going down to where we see practice and problem solving, it's still about the top half. I'm going to see student edition practice. So if I click on that, this is exactly what the students see in their book. So this is really helpful. So it doesn't have the solve and share here, but it does have what they see in the book. So again, this is the meat of the lesson. All right. So if I'm a 5th grade teacher and I'm just having them do that one page front and back, this is exactly it right here. So I might put this up on my projector or Clever Touch so that students can follow along. I would put this up and I'd show them, hey, here are the steps today. I would lead them in guided practice or have students come up to the Clever Touch and put the answers in. And then once they get to independent practice, maybe I do 1 or 2 with some struggling students, but they just go. Then what I like to do is students are wrapping up. Maybe I go over a couple questions on the back with them. You know from Savvas, Realize, Envisions math, that when you see the higher order thinking that they have on everyday lessons, those are the toughest questions. I always make sure my students end the lesson with knowing how to do these assessment practice, because each work page will have 1 or 2 assessment practice problems that are really similar to what they'll see on the test. And this way I can project for them what they need, and it's in their book, and we're good. We've done our lesson. Now, if I want to sprinkle in a few extra details to make my lesson a little bit better, one of the things I like doing every day is the daily review. So I can click on this and I can again project it for my students. But this is not in their workbook, so you might want to print this out. So I can print it out from school, I can project it, I can change the size to make sure that they can see it. I can have students come up and show how to do problems on the Clever Touch. That would be one of the things I would add to my lesson to make it the best it could be. If I'm still looking for things to add to my lesson to make it the best it could be, oh, and daily review is a great bell work activity. Students can come in your classroom, they can grab a pencil and that paper off your desk, sit down and get right to work. It's a really good way to start your day. Some other things I can add is I could show them the visual learning video. That's going to be for every lesson. And you get a second video for each lesson if you go all the way towards the bottom via another look video. This video is always a little shorter. It's very similar to the visual learning video, but there's no stopping. It's going to go straight through the video. It's usually 1, 2, maybe 2.5 minutes long, pretty short. It's going to do the concept again. Often I do this video instead of the other video. I like to preview both videos before the day and decide which one I want to show. Sometimes I choose both, sometimes I choose one, sometimes I choose none. Sometimes the video brings up a really good concept, but I don't like how they present it. So instead of showing any video, I tell my class we're going to skip the video today, and I show them how to do it on the board or at their seats or whatever. If we get below this section, then we're seeing all the Spanish language materials, and we don't need to go there for our school, but they're there if we need them. Another thing that I would add, so we've got the meat of the lesson, that workbook page. We've got the review, which I want to project and print out for my class. And then those are the two first things, and then I can do a video as well. That's another good thing. Another good thing you can add to your lesson, and you could do this at the end of the lesson, or you could do it the next day as kind of a warm-up activity, is the quick check. The quick check is just a very fast 5-question quiz. As you can see here, students are just asked to read a quick question. Often it can read out loud to them, and I like to do this whole group. So I go through each question. Often if there's an A, B, C, D, I can have students hold up dry erase boards with their choice on it. I can have students hold up a 1, 2, 3, or 4 fingers to give me quick feedback about what the answer is, what they think the answer is. There's a lot of ways we can use this. If I don't do this whole group at the end of the lesson as a wrap-up, or maybe the next day as a warm-up activity, I can also assign this to them. We'll talk about assigning materials at a different time, but if I wanted to assign them to them, I definitely could. I can assign a quick check, assign it to students, and here's something you'll see. It'll look similar to this the first time you assign it, but we'll get into that in another video. Okay, so those are some of the things that I can use to make my lesson really great. I can click on enrichment. This brings up an enrichment page, which is just that, enrichment. I've got a couple kids in my class that finish early all the time. Maybe I want to print this out for them and give them a little bit extra work. There's enrichment. Another thing I can do, if I really love giving my students homework, but I want to make it so at home they can do it and not get too frustrated, there is an activity called the additional practice activity. The additional practice activity is going to look just like their workbook activity. You can do it interactive. On their Chromebooks they can do it. I wouldn't recommend it. I would just print it out. So I'm going to come over here to print it out instead. Teacher resources, printable additional practice. If I want to change things, here it is again in an editable format. I'm going to click on this. Okay, this looks just like their workbook page. If you remember their student workbook page we looked at before, just like that, it has a higher order thinking, it's got assessment practice, it looks so similar. It's actually a one-to-one correspondent in the types of question they're asking. The only difference is it's in black and white, the problems are different, and then they also have this terrific thing at the top that you don't have in the practice pages in their workbook, which makes it more accessible to them if they're doing it at home for homework. It's going to give them a little background on here's the lesson we did today, here's what we need to remember from it before they jump into it. So that is an option you could use. Additional practice can also be used. This paper can also be used if, let's say, we had a bad day in math. We did everything we could as a teacher, but the students just didn't understand the concept. So I'm going to run it back the next day and do the same lesson again. I don't need to go to Teacher Pay Teacher or look online for 2 hours. I can just print out the additional practice, and we can have basically the same lesson again and give the students another shot at it based on some of the understanding I gained from the day before. So let's go back to the main page and look over some of the things we talked about. So once we're in, we found our topic, we found our specific lesson. We were doing lesson 1.5. We can look at the teacher's edition text up here. We've got the daily review if we want to give that to them. The solve and share looks just like that very first page of their lesson. It's just presented in a more projector-friendly format, so you could do that with them too. We've got a visual learning video. The Convince Me is just at the bottom of the activity. It's the same as their workbook. And I want to leave you with the most important thing, the student edition practice. That again is the meat of the lesson, that one page front and back activity. And here it is again. This is exactly what they see in their workbook. Project this for them. If for some reason they don't have their workbook or you can't find it in the classroom, you can print this out too, and then they'll have it to work from.